Yeah, there's lots of definitions. Tantra, again, is a evolution of ideas. It has many different forms, and it took many different forms in society. Tantra is a technology, a system of technologies that allow the individual to dissolve into oneness. It also means weave, to weave. And those two things are synonymous in terms of the Sanskrit. When you break it down, those two things do mean separate things, but they're also synonymous in that the whole practice is weaving, it is to experience how interconnected and how woven we are into the bigger picture. So Tantra would be an exploration of all of those subtle levels, subtle layers to our psyche and our bodies, until we reach this transcendental state, this mergence with everything, with all phenomena. So Tantra, it has taken different forms, and there's all kinds of Tantra that exist. So very early Tantra was very much about there's two paths. The left-hand path would be quite profound, or maybe how do you say, extreme practices which a householder wouldn't partake in because it was just too weird, like meditating with corpses in a graveyard, for instance, and that was very extreme. There's very good reason for that. It's not morbid. We can maybe unpack that later, but it evolved. A scholar, practitioner, Abhinavagupta, for instance, he took those practices and brought them into the mainstream. So, but the whole purpose was to transcend mundane reality, to unhook ourselves from our normal everyday attachments, so we could experience liberation in the body. Liberation being freedom from your own worries, hang-ups, psychological processes that keep us trapped.
Thank you. I've got a question actually linked to that before I ask you for another definition. If Tantra is this weaving, as you described, why would Kundalini be linked? Now, maybe to myself and yourself is obvious, but could you articulate as a link? Why would Kundalini be part of the tantric path?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, Kundalini, the word Kundalini comes about much later in the tantric path. It doesn't emerge very early on. It kind of evolves. So it's Kundalini is you see an evolution of these concepts. So Tantra is a philosophy in and of itself, but you've also got it is influenced by surrounding philosophies and schools of thought. So Tantra is influenced by the Upanishads, which is Vedanta. And of course, Tantra will have influenced yoga systems. So they all do merge together. So this concept of Kundalini, in terms of weave, this is such a loaded question, because it in so many ways, this can be answered in so many ways. One way, from what we know now, maybe looking back, collecting all of the information over the past 2,000 years, it's a mechanism. It's a biological mechanism, it's a psychological mechanism, and it's a subtle body spiritual mechanism, which untangles, a force which untangles the compactness of the human. So its power, its explosion in the body, its release will loosen the knots in our system to allow the threads, or the bundle that we normally are, the tight bundle that we normally are, to reach out and connect with everything else. Maybe that would be one way of describing it. And interestingly, in the yoga and the Tantra, there's a really concise way in which it does this, the way it unfolds, the way it cleanses the system, purifies thought forms from the body, thoughts that are stuck and lodged in our system that keep us behaving in ways which trap us.